Invariably, theater openings always end with a theater closing. Usually it's bittersweet, and the memories stay with us for months, years after the production. But a theater closing can mean something else. Last week, the theater community in Rhode Island and nearby Massachusetts lost a great guy, a wonderful actor, and a good friend, Stephen Hugg. 2 years ago, I did a interview with Stephen and published the audio only. So I dug up the full video and I did put this together here with some graphics I dropped in from a show we both worked on. So I hope this walk down memory lane, is comforting to you out there who knows Steve. We'll miss you, bud.
I am here today on a nice Saturday morning. I'm having some cold pancakes and extremely hot coffee. And I'm speaking with Stephen Hugg, local actor, raconteur. We will talk many things about Steve and his life, and we'll talk about how he and I crossed paths. But why don't you tell us a little bit about you? For those out there who don't know Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit?
With pancake in your mouth.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for people?
All right.
Your background. Yeah.
My name is Stephen Hugg, Hug, not the whatever you did with the pancake in your mouth. This is professional. Jim, when I was doing radio, we really didn't we had to take steps. Like you don't talk with food in your mouth on the microphone. These are the fundamentals. My name is Stephen Hugg. I live in Attleboro, Massachusetts, but I'm originally from the Midwest, up to the Boston area, and did a lot of different things over the years. And this is an acting show. I started getting into acting about 3 or 4 years ago. I had been urged. I did radio for many years. That was my first thing out of after I got done with college. But actually, I was doing some in high school up in Boston a little bit, and actually in the heyday of radio in some ways up there. I was doing a kids show back then. But locally in Providence, Holly Applegate, who's involved with the Barker Playhouse. Bill Applegate runs it. He's the executive director. I happen to be a member of Providence Rotary Club. And she said, Steve, you got to go on stage. You got to go on stage. You were on radio. You got to go on stage. And I said, I don't know anything about acting, which I've, proven over and over again on stage, maybe in the show you and I did together. And so I said, well, wait a minute. I'm going to go to grad school for a little while. So I have a full-time job. I'm a grant writer. Doing that for many years on and off with marketing things for a nonprofit. Just like you had interviewed Ben Christie in your previous show. Ben and Rebecca, we were in I Hate Hamlin with you, of course. And Ben works in nonprofits, and so do I. But so I went, and then I started taking classes, did an audition, and I was very busy. Have been very busy for about 3 years in community theater. A number of them for the Barker Playhouse and that. But I know you're interested in the radio thing, and since I did reference it, some of you listening in Providence area who've been around for a long time. I used to be on B101 radio on the weekends primarily under the name Steve Valentine, a name I came up with because I worked in radio right after college. I went up and down the dial. Let's see, I worked in Worcester. I worked out in the Berkshires. I worked in Poughkeepsie, New York. I worked in South Shore, Massachusetts, and I did a lot of different things. I used to be the assistant park announcer at Fenway Park. Did you know that, Jim?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I know people want to relate. When I was in college, I did 3 seasons as the assistant park announcer. People remember when they put in the scoreboard, the computer scoreboard back the year after the Red Sox lost the World Series to my hometown Cincinnati Reds, because I'm from Cincinnati. I was hired and trained to run a computer during the game, and they hired me because of the voice thing, and I did fill in, and I did some complete games, introducing the players and all that kind of thing, and that was a college job for me. So I kind of stumbled into some things, and believe me, stumble is everything from stumbling into I Hate Hamlet, the show you and I did together for the Attleboro Community Theater a year ago, about right now, in fact.
Yes, that's this is called for people out there. This is a segue.
Yeah.
So segueing into I Hate Hamlet, which I do want to talk about for many reasons. It was one of my favorite shows that I've done. Unlike you, I've been doing theater for 1,000 years. But anyway, what I usually do when I'm doing a show, especially now in the age of social media, I go on my page or other people's pages who allow you on to look at their friends, and I look for types. I look for people who that's a great type, and I try to invite them to come. I don't precast, but I do have had enough experience to know you just open auditions and you post it. There's so many wonderful ways to post it. And you offer people, if you don't know the script, I can send you portions that we're going to read from. And no one shows up. I mean, it sounds like whining, but it's true. So I did see your visage on Facebook, and I also it was connected. I think you were sort of saying you were going to be in a Barker show, and so I said to myself, he looks good, and he does theater. I mean, he's an electrician. He does theater, so let me go see the show. And it's got that long, silly name to it, which you can now tell me. Because
it's a Christmas show. It was directed by the great Vince Petronio.
And the name of it was?
It's too long for me to remember. But
good, because I don't either. It's Butterfingers, Angel, and the 13 Apostles or something. I don't know what the heck it was.
It's a comedy based on the Nativity story.
Yes. It was a great script and a great play, and written by, I think, William Gibson, who I also think wrote The Miracle Worker. But stranger things are true. So I went
6 months before then. You probably don't remember it, but you had a show with Joyce in it, our mutual friend, and she. I went to see her, and I bumped into you after the show. I said hi to you.
So I came to see the show, and I didn't hang around afterwards. I had somewhere else I had to go. I'm very busy, so I didn't get to talk to you. But I saw it, and then we kept communication going. And I'm sure then auditions were that spring. We're like January, February, right after that show closed. So I invited you. You said you'd think about it. And I thought that was a little bit uppity, but I realized later that you were concerned about the size of a role, lines-wise, not so much character-wise. You and I are both getting up in age, and I know I would not go on the stage anymore and try to memorize, pages and pages of dialogue, but that's me. So you did come, and you did read, and you were marvelous. And certainly my first choice, it was great when you picked the two main actors in the show. You mentioned Ben Christie. He plays, you're his foil, or he's your foil, and I use the term foil purposely in a moment. Yeah. So you two found you, and so I locked you in, and then went searching, and that's on the other podcast, which you'll have to listen to how Ben got involved. What was your opinion when you read it?
Well, I think and a lot of folks who make reference to shows that people haven't seen, so. This is what I would say. I read I Hate Hamlet. You had contacted me, and Paul Rudnick apparently wrote one of the Addams Family movies that were in the 90s or something like that. So I'm reading this thing, and I was rightfully worried. I had done increasingly more responsible parts, with more lines and stuff. Butterfingers Angel was not one of them. I didn't have a great deal of lines. I was on stage a lot. And I was doing a lot of jumping around in that and bad singing, and that was a load of fun. But right after that, I did the Shadow Box by Jeff Sullivan. Now I had it off stage, but I was on stage with a voice. There was interviews the way that the Shadow Box show, and Jeff heard the voice, said, "Hey, listen, I need you to be the interviewer." So I work with people who are long-term leads. And I went off book on that, even though during the show I was on book. That means I didn't have to memorize, but I did anyway. And I went through the discipline, and I worked with really experienced actors and they had a lot of lines. So I saw that what they did, and I said, hey, wait a minute, I can do this too. So I read I Hate Hamlet, and it's a very funny movie. And the reference to the Addams Family is that I saw John Barrymore as Gomez Addams. And I saw a connection between what he was doing and Gomez Addams. Now, Gomez Addams wasn't invented by Paul Rudnick, but especially with the sword fighting and everything like that. But the bottom line is it's a laugh out loud funny show. So if you have a chance to see it somewhere, and it's being done all over the place. I didn't realize it was being done so much, but after I got into it, I realized a lot of companies do it. It is just screamingly funny, and it's never boring. At least it's not supposed to be that way, because
and one of the things that, again, I'm not patting myself on the back, it's just happenstance sometimes, and sometimes when you're desperate, you see something you like and you go against your better judgment. And again, this is in the other podcast where I was interviewing Ben and Rebecca Christie and how he came to it. But I'm not going through all that again. But the point was, Ben, who plays a role equal, maybe a tad, if you're talking about line count, because Barrymore doesn't come in right away, and then they're on stage together all the time. His line count is probably a little higher. And he had never been on stage in his life.
It was amazing.
He didn't know upstage. He didn't know downstage. He didn't know cross above the chair. He knew none of that. And directors, anyone uses shorthand like that. And what was great, his wife, Rebecca, who is very experienced, would push him around on stage during rehearsal. She'd say, no, you go that way. No, that's the wrong way. And he got it pretty quick. He, again, was brilliant. He's a musician. He learned all his lines, he told me, by music. He set it in his brain to music. So I got him. I got a husband and wife. They may argue with each other at home or whatever. Will they bring things? No, they won't bring it to the stage, which they didn't. She was a great help to him and a great support. And then I got Stephen over here, who, has a very short resume. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, when you're doing, if it was drama, I wouldn't care. Drama, you can feel with your heart. Comedy is lines, is timing, is looks, is grimace. The Barrymore role is making faces. I mean, it's stuff that you don't have the time to teach it. This wasn't Theater 101. We had to do the play. And again, I will say this to your face, nothing I wouldn't say to your face or behind your back, is that you were brilliant. I mean, brilliant in the sense of not only the finished product, but you and Ben, everyone in the cast were great to work with. There wasn't any feeling where I felt I had a millstone of any of the actors. They all took their roles and worked on them, and I could then see what they gave me and whatever. So, of course, I'll take credit for the brilliant product that it was. But we did have one hitch. Do you want to talk about that? Well, what was you weren't worried about the lines. You told me you did a line count. You said you were good. What was the only thing that concerned you? Well,
the sword fighting. When I read the script, I saw him jump around a little bit. I said, okay, I can learn how to do this. And then we got into it, and I'm a young actor, and one of the things that I found, as far as, first of all, I want to mention the lines, because this is a thing I talk to a lot of actors about, or especially the ones who have been doing it for many years. How do you memorize? And the thing about it is, it's work. You can't have fun with a show until you've gone through the not fun part, and you simply have to, however you do it, through route, there's different tricks. Ben apparently used music. I do a lot of repetition, and you get up in the morning. So anyway, I'm doing good. In fact, was it Gordon Smith? He said he never saw a guy get off book that quick. Gordon at the theater does sound and some lights and stuff, and he's great. I said, well, that was fear. That was fear. I had to prove that I could do it. And then, of course, you have to do the lines a million times to finally get them right. And even then you go, but the sword fighting. She said, well, I'm going to bring in somebody to train you. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Well, you didn't know that it wasn't a natural thing for me. So the guy comes in. What was his name?
Thank you for asking. I did write it down. I had to go look it up again because, again, my brain has no corks in it. Chris Cardoni from Brighton or somewhere up near Boston. So he trekked down to do that. And again, I found him through another production that was done, and he came in 3 or 4 Saturdays/Sundays when we weren't doing anything else, and I'm doing any actual stage rehearsal. So it was very, what's what I want to use? I was very antsy because I had nothing to do. There was no point at that point of adding on character or anything. You had to get the rudiment. So I just sat there and watched him do what he does for, and it's not just, he told me it's not just fencing in the sense of you go to a fencing studio, like you can go to a jiu-jitsu or a karate studio, same thing, and learn technique. And, it's a sport. You can actually do it as a sport. But stage combat, which this is, stage combat with dangerous weapons, is different. And that's what he was trained in and did a great job. So take it from there. How, your first couple of, I just remember you when it was over, I don't blame you. You were sweating from the exertion. I mean, he'd do like 4 hours.
We did 9 hours worth of training, and I am not the fastest study in the world. Fortunately, the young man, Ben Christie, who played the counterpart or whatever in the show, who had a sword fight, he's a fast study. He had done, I think, a lot of physical. I'm a runner mostly. I train, work out. Now I lift a lot of weights these days being stuck home. But he did a lot of stuff with his arms, and so it was more natural. So Chris comes in and shows me how to hold the sword. So I'm holding the sword with the grip. Within about 10 seconds, I was out of the grip. He says, no, you got to get the grip. Let me just say one thing. I don't think I ever got the grip right. So Ben is looking at me, and I don't know Ben very well at the time, and Rebecca may have been there, and you're looking at me, and I'm going, I gotta get this. This is like really serious. And I go, Jim, I don't know. And you go, no, don't worry about it. You'll get it. So Ben was going right along, and he was helping me, and I was just trying to get a hang of it. And Chris, he had every right to roll his eyes because he's going to say, I just showed him how to put his feet. You're supposed to put the left foot kind of sideways and the other one like this. And of course, I would with all the intentions of doing it, but then I go right out of it and fall right out of it. And
once again, it was picked up by rote, and it was just over and you would do it at home. I made a tape for you guys when we got like a rough block, blocking in of the whole thing. I would then, it's real, rough, but here it is. You can take it home, and that's what you did.
Well, that was key because I should tell folks I live in a trailer. All right, I live an alternative lifestyle in a lot of ways. And a very conventional lifestyle in other ways. Anyway, I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning with a stick I found outside. And I have a lot of room. I didn't have like a sword. And even if I did, there wouldn't be room to really do it. So I would watch these clips of the different parts of it. And you say, okay, we're going to do the first, the first minute of it. And now at the same time, we're doing some dialogue at the same time. If we were just doing the athletic event, it would be one thing, but we also have to have the sense of, okay, I'm doing this with but I not have to say this, that kind of thing. So I would get up, and this is, I would say to people who are interested in acting, realize that really you have to commit. And I felt that you had trusted me, and Ben and the other actors in it really trusted the people carrying the show to really do the work. And if you don't do the work, that has a massive problem with the show.
Now, to be fair, I was doing a lot of drinking back then.
I don't drink. I'm totally opposite of John Barrymore. And I don't drink or anything. But I did have the discipline because I felt a responsibility to you, who trusted me, who believed in me, and to Liz Parent, my love interest in it, to Alicia Harris, Dave Almeida, Rebecca, and Ben Christie, and Gene Smith, who runs the theater. And the thing is, I had to deliver. And meantime, I have a full-time job. We don't get paid for this. But the only way to do it and do the life I had to live, I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd watch the video, and then I'd count 1, 2, 3, and then I'd go back and forth with my hand with a stick. So this stick was in my trailer. And so I would do it, watch it and just do it. And then we just did it on the stage enough. And Ben would nicely correct me. And he would help me get through things. And I'm supposed to be, now the character John Barrymore is teaching this young guy, this young television actor, how to do this, because Barrymore was the greatest Hamlet.
Well, and the balance that you guys got yourselves, this was not something part of the choreography. Part of what the two of you ended up doing was adding the acting, and that Chris did not. I did send him a tape, and he was appreciative of that. By the time he left, his schedule did not let him come back after he was done, and this was early in rehearsal, so he wasn't there. You know, a choreographer of a musical is there during dress and tech, and they give notes and they fix things. So I was left and Ben to fix. He fixed anything that wasn't sharp choreography wise, and I was trying to. And you guys took off with this character things to make it not like 1, 2 hit. What you had to have character, which both of you did, and the acting of him in the beginning. Not even wanting to touch the sword, the character, and then getting pissed enough at you, Barrymore, the character, that he picks it up and flourishes. That is acting. So he knew he had to be clumsy in the beginning, still being within the choreography for safety and other reasons. Each of you had to know what the other one was going to do. I did listen in a little bit on Chris, and I'm not going to do a fencing lesson here, but there are times where one person is the defense.
Yeah.
And they know where the offense is going to swing, and their job is to put up their defense, and vice versa. Then you obviously you switch off. Sometimes you're the offense, sometimes you're the defense, and it obviously works in this where you're winning a little bit, then he's winning, and then we come to the end. And
right. But the fun part was when I remember I had to drink. I had to drink a bottle, take a big jug, like I'm drinking, and looking the other way and doing that. And it
that was the toughest. That was the toughest, but we nailed it. Oh my God!
On the couch and stuff. That was fun. And then, but the moment of truth came was when there's a scene where I unveil where the swords are, and I have to pull back a cloth. Well, the cloth, I probably set it up so the cloth was a little accidentally, and it was too tight on the swords or something, and I pulled it off, and one of the swords flew through the air, okay? And if it hit the ground, it would have been really untidy. I caught it in the air.
I remember that.
Whoa, you remember that?
I do. I do.
I said, that was good. And then we got done. I remember the last performance we did, Ben said, you never missed a stroke. You got every single one on stage.
And I watched it every night. And again, because this was so early on in rehearsal, which I knew we'd have to do that. If we didn't get this nailed right away, it wouldn't give us enough time to make changes if it's not going to work and so forth. And Chris Cardoni knew that. He knew you weren't experts, but he went top line of what he wanted. And he told me this, but he told me not to tell you, and I might have sneakily told you. He would adjust it. He'd cut it back. He'd make it simpler if necessary, but he didn't want either of you to know. He wanted you to work your ass off getting what he wanted. And if it didn't work, there was anything wrong or dangerous, he would change it. But by the end, because we got it done early enough, and every night you guys come in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half hour before rehearsal, and I couldn't give up rehearsal time at that time. I gave up like 5 rehearsals for this, so I couldn't do any more of that. So you guys would come in, run it, and then if it came up in that evening, you'd run it again.
Right, and the thing was, when we go into a show, first of all, I loved the show. I loved the comedy. I personally love to make people laugh. I haven't been I guess I've been in a couple of comedies, but this was my kind of comedy in a big, big way. So I think one of the reviewers wrote that you could see that Hug was really enjoying himself on the stage. And it's true. I really, really enjoyed it almost every night or every performance. But that said, there was always this thing that ended the first act that was just hanging out there. Well, you got all the cute jokes in, the kind of off-color jokes, some of them, you know. Oh my God, that was hanging over the head. You're going into it. So, though Ben, I think, not to put words in his mouth, I think he looked forward to it because he really enjoyed doing it. With me, I enjoyed finishing it when we were done. Like I remember years ago, they were interviewing Carly Simon about songwriting, and that was a passion of mine. I started as a songwriter, rock and roll singer, that kind of thing. And she said, they said, "Do you like to write songs, Carly?" And she says, "I like to have, I like it. I like to have written a song, not so much writing the song." So once we were done and we got through the whole thing, it has a lot of laughs in it. Then there was fortunately that ends the scene, right? Yes.
That ends the act. So then you can have a whole second act. You don't have to worry about it. You didn't have the swords don't come back.
The swords don't come back. So by the time he gets in the second act, but if you get a chance, the listeners, if you get a chance, truly, if you're not a theater person, and again, I'm not, Jim, you are much more. You worked as a stage manager, New York or something? And I've been in a decent number of shows for being around, and even as a movie, hopefully a couple of movies, and kind of been busy for the past 3 years. But it's just so I'm not my girlfriend likes to go to community theater. She has friends that are actors, so I used to go to shows with her. She dragged me, and I would always feel like I was in the wrong seat. I always felt that I should be on stage. Isn't that weird? But I didn't particularly like to go to the shows. So I kind of started doing it because I thought my girlfriend would like it. Well, I'm in the middle of I Hate Hamlet. I'm going, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm going to learn this stuff. And I said, I'm doing this all for you. She said, what are you talking about? She said, what? I just want you to come to the shows with me. You didn't have to be on stage. I said, no. I said, I didn't know that. You mean
now you tell me.
Trying to learn 100 pages of dialogue or whatever. Sword fight. I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you didn't tell me that? You mean I didn't want. And as far as other actors doing the role, let me just tell you, there's an advantage to wearing tights on stage and having a sword fighting. It's kind of amazing. What I would have told my 20-year-old self was, learn how to sword fight and wear tights on stage. There are some advantages that I never fathomed at all. And then wearing those boots too. Remember, you and I tried to find the right boots. That was kind of
we did.
We got the right boots, and I wore them all the time, even when I wasn't in costume, just to get used to the shoes, and also the fact that we were going to have to fight in those shoes was something. But I thought we had a nice cast. I mean, we had Liz Parent, who was I'm the ghost. She's not, but we, when I was alive, we had an affair. Somehow she's in that. She was great, really, to work with, interact with on the stage. I thought we had a lot of fun. We had a little dancing scene.
I didn't think all these things were going to be so hard. We come to that. It's two people, ladies and gentlemen, it's two people rocking in each other's arms to light jazz music. All right. And it goes on, and then they have some dialogue. It goes on for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And it's like, I was not going to bring in a dance choreographer. So it's the same thing. It's like, this guy's giving me trouble. He's saying, well, I don't dance. You're not dancing. But anyway, it was very moving. It was very lovely. It was very intimate. And I don't care how it got there, but it was.
That was good. But that also was a little bit of a stretch for me, because I have no confidence in these kinds of situations. More confidence with the comedy, actually. If I know the lines, I can feel the rhythm of where the comedy, the timing and stuff. I think I'm more natural doing that than some of the physical stuff. But if you're on stage, it's a physical thing. It's not like broadcasting where it's all verbal. So bringing the two together, but it's a discipline. And also it's like being on a team. All of us, Dave, Almeida, all of us, Alicia, we became a team for this, for this 2 or 3 month period, and then it ends, and everybody.
We go home and then the depression sets in.
The depression sets in, or you go into a new project real quick. Some people do that. In fact, I think I did get into something. I forget what it was, but. Yeah, you have that. So it's nice. And that's what about community theater, or perhaps any theater. I just worked in community theater, either Barker Playhouse the Attleboro Community Theater. I've done stuff with Nick Albanese in Cranston. Had a fun show, The Last Days of Rock and Rob, which he wrote. Did that, and that was a fun. But for that time, you've got a project that you've got to execute in kind of a terrifying situation. Real live people and sometimes critics that will come in, and it's really a feeling. I said it's like being on a baseball team. Maybe when you're in high school, I don't know what the professionals. Or any kind of team, and then you do it, and you execute it, and you're going to have hopefully usually good days, but occasionally you'll have not so good day, and you're there for each other during that period of time to accomplish that. And you, as the leader, as the director, had to tend the sheep. You had to tend me and everybody else to our strengths and our weaknesses as you saw them. One thing you did do, which I've seen other directors do, but I thought it was important to do in I Hate Hamlet, was you took you sped it up. We don't, and this is, you're trying to think of your lines, or you may even have your lines, but the idea was to take the air out of the stuff and keep the show moving. And we really tried to do that in that show. And I think that's something that you can do only for me. Of course, Ben learned his monologue at in 10 minutes, I guess. But it just takes a lot of repetition and getting the feel. But I've talked to, as I mentioned, Vince Petronio. I've done a lot of scene studies classes with him. And he said he's been in shows where he'll do 15 performances. And on the 15th performance, the last performance, he'll realize that he said a certain line wrong. And it only occurred to him after that many times. So, and of course, unlike film, everything's a first take. I mean, that's it. That is the take that audience is going to see. And if it's good, hopefully they remember. If it's not so good, hopefully they didn't notice. And then you just move on from all of that.
Before we go, this has been great. Before we go, I do want you, because of your, and I found this fascinating when I met you and we sat around talking about your radio days. Give me a lead in into the news or a lead in into the weather.
Well, B101, the oldies station. Coming up, we got Eric Clapton at B101. Something like
Great. Well, listen, B101. Stay safe. I see you're working from various homes while this pandemic's going on. So my regard to you and yours, and hopefully all of us soon will be out and about and playing on the boards again. And
my best to your wife, who was a supporter. Yes.
Yeah, if it weren't for her, I don't know. I think maybe I'm not sure whether she likes to throw me out of the house, or I think, in all honesty, she does miss when I'm doing a show. It's 4 or 5 nights a week and weekends, building sets and whatever. So in the beginning, it's kind of nice for a little separation, but we do each other well to be together. And yes, so thank you. And to your lovely woman, I shouldn't keep calling her your woman. What's her name?
Laura.
To lovely Laura, who puts up with you.
She does.
Yes, she does. All right. So again, thanks a lot, Steve. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jim.
We're gonna see the vicious side.